3 weeks ago, my mother called me from the hospital, not to check on me, to ask if I could drive my brother home after his procedure. That was the first time she'd called in 4 months, and my answer was 3 words. But to explain those 3 words, I need to take you back 2 years, to the night I sat alone in a parking garage in Nashville, waiting for feeling to come back into my hands after the worst news of my life. I'm 32. I work as a physical therapist at an outpatient clinic on the east side of the city. It's not glamorous. I spend my days helping people relearn how to walk, how to grip a pen, how to exist in a body that stopped cooperating. I'm good at it. I have a small apartment with a bay window I paid too much for, a rescue cat named something embarrassing I won't repeat here, and a standing dinner reservation at a Thai place 2 blocks away where they know my order without me saying it. My life, before everything fell apart, was genuinely fine. Quiet. Mine. My family is not small. There's my mother and father, my older brother, the one they flew across the country for his high school graduation, the one whose college apartment they furnished from scratch, the one whose career pivots they funded twice without blinking. And then there's me. I don't say this to sound bitter. I say it because it's just true, the way weather is true. He was the event. I was background. That's how it worked in our house, for as long as I can remember. When I was 25, I asked my parents to help me cover the last $3,000 of my nursing school application fees and test costs. My father said they were stretched thin. That same month, they put down a deposit on a condo my brother wanted to rent in Denver. I know because I saw the bank notification. My father had accidentally added me to a shared family account that he forgot to remove me from. I didn't say anything. I just started a separate savings folder on my banking app and labeled it Mine Only. That habit of documentation, of keeping things, of recording quietly. That's something I started long before things got bad. It just turned out to be useful later. 2 years ago in October, I went in for what my gynecologist described as a routine follow-up after an abnormal PEP. I wasn't worried. I've never been a worrier. I sat in the waiting room of the imaging center reading a magazine article about kitchen renovations until a technician came out and said the doctor wanted to speak with me directly. That sentence. I will never forget the way her voice was carefully flat when she said it. I sat across from my doctor 40 minutes later, in a room with a ficus that needed water and a clock that ticked too loudly, and she told me I had cervical cancer. Early stage 2, she said. Treatable. But I would need surgery, then radiation, possibly chemotherapy, depending on how the surgery went. She talked for a long time. I heard maybe 60% of it. I remember sitting in my car afterward in the parking garage. Level 3B. A concrete pillar in front of me, fluorescent lights above. I sat there for 22 minutes because I counted the minutes on my dashboard, not because I was too sad to drive. Because I was doing the math on who to call. My best friend from graduate school lived in Boston. It was already 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. My coworker, Jonquil, who I'd started having lunch with every day, and who would later become the closest thing I had to a lifeline, didn't know enough about me yet to get that call. And my family. I called my mother first. She answered on the second ring, which surprised me because she usually lets it go to voicemail after 8. Hi honey, can I call you back? Your brother is here, and we're in the middle of planning the renovation schedule. My brother had bought a house 6 months earlier, a Victorian in Portland that needed significant work. My parents had contributed $40,000 toward the down payment. The renovation, which was ongoing, had become the primary subject of every family conversation for the better part of a year. Every Sunday call was tile samples and contractor bids, and whether to do open shelving or upper cabinets. Mom, I said, I need to tell you something. She put me on hold for 30 seconds. I heard muffled voices, then silence, then her again. Okay, go ahead. I just left my doctor's office. I have cervical cancer. It's stage 2. They want to do surgery in the next few weeks. The pause that followed was not the pause of someone absorbing devastating news. It was the pause of someone deciding how to respond. Oh, sweetheart, that's scary. Are you okay? So what does that mean exactly? Is it serious? I explained what the doctor had told me. Surgery first, then we'd know more about the radiation plan. Okay, she said. Okay, well, keep us posted, okay? Your father is gonna want to know. And your brother, too. Have you eaten? You should eat something. That was the call. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I know because I checked my recent calls the next morning when I couldn't sleep. I want to be fair to my mother here. I think, in her own way, she was scared and didn't know how to hold it. My family has never been good at hard things. They are good at brunches and birthday texts and surface conversations. Fear goes underground in my family. It surfaces as logistics or as silence. But I need to also say, I called my father the next day and he said, "Well, you're young and healthy, you'll get through it." And then he said, "Hey, I wanted to ask if you could look up whether the tile your brother picked is the right grade for radiant heating. You're good at research." I said I'd look into it. I looked into it, I sent him a link. I don't know why I did that. I think I was still trying. My surgery was scheduled for 6 weeks out. In those 6 weeks, my parents called me twice. Both times, my mother called to update me on the renovation. The second time, she mentioned, almost as an aside, that she hoped my surgery went smoothly. The morning of my surgery, I drove myself to the hospital. My neighbor, a retired school librarian named, I'll call her by her first name, Odalise, saw me loading my bag into my car and asked where I was going. I told her. She said, "Honey, do you have someone meeting you there?" I said I was fine. She handed me a container of homemade lemon bars through the window of my car and said she'd have her phone on all day. Odalise sat in the waiting room for 4 hours while I was in surgery. She was 71 years old and she had a bad hip, and she sat in a plastic hospital chair for 4 hours for a neighbor she'd known for 8 months. I think about that a lot. My family did not come. My brother sent a text that said, "Thinking of you today, sis, Quentert," at 11:47 a.m., which was 40 minutes after I'd gone into the OR. My mother called at 6 p.m., after I was already home. She'd called the hospital first, and a nurse had told her I'd been discharged, and she seemed relieved by that. Like the fact that I had been discharged meant everything had resolved itself. "How are you feeling?" "Sore. Really tired." "That makes sense. Surgery is hard on the body. Are you resting?" "Trying to." "Good. Good. Oh, your brother finalized the tile, the Radiant Grade 1. It looks beautiful. I'll send you a picture." She did send me the picture. A close-up of terracotta tile on a concrete subfloor. I still have it somewhere. I couldn't bring myself to delete it. Because I couldn't decide if I wanted to remember it or forget it. Radiation started 3 weeks later. My oncologist, who I'll just call my doctor because she became so central to my life during that period that she deserves more than a throwaway name. But this isn't her story. She mapped out a 6-week external radiation plan, 5 days a week, and told me the fatigue would build. She was right. Jonquil started driving me to my Tuesday and Thursday sessions when I admitted, almost by accident, that I wasn't sleeping well. She rearranged her patient schedule to do it. She'd bring a thermos of coffee and a crossword, and she'd sit in the waiting area working on it. And when I came out, she'd hand me a snack she'd packed. Always something I could actually stomach, because she'd asked about my nausea, and she'd listened. And she'd remembered. My family did not come to a single appointment. Not one. I tracked them. I don't know why I started doing it. Maybe because Jonquil mentioned, offhandedly, that hospitals keep visitation records and that some patients request them. I requested mine. And I kept my own record too. A folder on my phone. Every text thread, every call log, every unanswered message. My brother reached out 7 times in 6 weeks. 6 of those times were about Thanksgiving logistics. Whether I was coming, what dish I was bringing, whether I could pick up my aunt from the airport since I was closer. The 7th was a forward of a link to a juice cleanse that he said had helped a friend of his get through something health-related. I did not go to Thanksgiving. I told them I was too fatigued. I was, genuinely, but I also knew I couldn't sit at that table and watch my brother hold court about his Victorian and his contractor drama and have no one ask how I was doing. My mother said, "Oh, that's a shame. We'll miss you." My brother said, "More stuffing for me." He added a laughing emoji. I cried for a long time after that. Not because I was excluded. Because I wasn't. I was invited and I still didn't exist. The hardest night was a Tuesday in December. I was in week 5 of radiation, and the fatigue had compounded into something I can only describe as gravity. Like my body was being slowly pressed into the floor. I'd come home from treatment, made it to the couch, and then realized I hadn't eaten since 7 a.m. and couldn't make myself get up to fix that. I called my mother at 8 p.m. It rang 9 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Mom, can you call me back when you can? Not urgent, I just need to hear your voice." She texted back at 10:43 p.m. "Sorry, honey, we were watching a movie. Everything okay?" I typed back, "Yes, I'm fine. Good night." At 11:15, Jonquil texted out of nowhere, "Checking in on you. How are you tonight?" I stared at that message for a long time before I answered. Then I said, "Actually not great." She was at my door in 30 minutes with soup from a place that stayed open late and a blanket she thought I might want because she said hospital blankets are never enough and that I deserved a good one. She stayed until I fell asleep on the couch. She left a note on my kitchen counter that said, "I'll pick you up Thursday. Text me your craving." I did not tell my family about that night. What would I have said? By the time my follow-up scans came back clear, 6 months after my initial diagnosis, a slow and terrifying 6 months, I had stopped reaching out first. Not out of anger. Out of exhaustion. There's a specific kind of tire that comes from trying to be seen by people who have decided, not cruelly but completely, that you don't require their attention. I was that tired. I rebuilt slowly. My apartment started feeling like a place I lived in rather than a place I was surviving in. Jonquil and I started a tradition of Friday morning walks before work. My doctor used the words "strong response" at my 6-month check, and I sat in my car afterward. Different parking garage, different city block, same fluorescent lights, and let myself feel something other than braced. I bought myself a ring. A thin gold band with a small garnet stone from a jewelry maker whose booth I found at a craft fair. It wasn't expensive, it just felt like marking something. I wore it on my right hand. I still wear it. My family and I moved into a period of what I'd call managed distance. Holiday texts. Birthday calls that lasted 4 minutes. My brother's renovation finished and became his primary personality for another year. My parents visited him in Portland twice. They have not visited me in Nashville in 3 years. Then, last month, my mother called. I was at the clinic, between patients, eating lunch standing up because I'd run out of time to sit. My phone buzzed and I looked at it expecting a scheduling notification. It was her. "Hi, honey." She sounded bright, the way she sounds when she wants something. "I have a favor to ask. Your brother is having a minor procedure next week. Nothing serious, it's outpatient, but he can't drive himself home. Would you be able to fly up to Portland?" I set my lunch down. "When?" I said. "Friday. It's early in the morning, 7:30. You just need to be there to pick him up. Maybe stay the night before so you're there in case the timing shifts." I thought about the 6-week radiation schedule I'd completed alone. I thought about the Tuesday night I couldn't get off my couch. I thought about Audrelise in a plastic hospital chair for 4 hours. "What kind of procedure?" I asked. "A knee scope. He's been having trouble with it. You know how he's been with the renovation, all that kneeling. Anyway, his wife can't leave work and they just need someone there for the pickup. You're so good at this kind of thing. You're so good at this kind of thing." I turned that sentence over in my head. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice even. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When I had surgery 2 years ago, did you consider coming?" A pause. "Not a long one, but real. Honey, that was complicated. You know we were in the middle of the house. I'm not asking to fight. I'm genuinely asking. Did you consider it?" Another pause. "I knew you were okay. You always manage. You always manage. That was it. That was the sentence that had governed my entire relationship with my family. That was why I'd gotten a text with a laughing emoji about the stuffing, and a picture of terracotta tile, and a callback at 10:43 p.m. from a movie. Because I always managed. Mom, I said, I can't fly to Portland. Oh, are you busy that week? Because maybe we could. I'm not busy. I just can't do it. Silence. I don't understand. He's your brother. I know. This is a family thing. I know. Why won't you help? And there it was. The same question I had needed someone to ask on my behalf for 2 years. Why won't you help? Not, we should have been there. Not, we understand this is a lot to ask. Just, why won't you help? Stated as if the answer should be obvious, stated as if my willingness to drive 3 states away for a knee scope were simply a matter of scheduling. I can't deal right now, I said. That was it. That was all I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, excuse me? I can't deal right now. I'm in the middle of work. Which was true, but that wasn't why I said it. I said it because she needed to hear it in her own voice. Because 2 years ago, I had been the one calling, and the person on the other end had made a calculation about what required their attention and what didn't, and I had not been worth the trip. Well, she said. Her voice had gone careful. I hope you'll think about it. I have thought about it, I said. I'll talk to you soon. I hung up. I stood in the break room for a minute, just breathing. Then I texted John Keel, can we do dinner tonight? I'll tell you when I see you. She sent back a thumbs up and the name of the Thai place. Over dinner, I told her everything. The call, the request, the 3 words. She listened the way she always listens, without interrupting, without making it about herself, without offering a solution before I'd finished saying what I felt. When I was done, she said, how do you feel? Steady, I said, and I meant it. I hadn't felt angry during the call. I hadn't felt angry during the call. I hadn't felt hurt, exactly, or at least not a new hurt. The hurt was old and familiar, like weather I'd learned to dress for. What I had felt, in that break room with my lunch sitting untouched on the counter, was clear. My mother called back the next day. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message, which said she'd been thinking about our conversation and that she felt I'd been unfair. She called again 2 days later. I answered. I want to understand what's happening with you, she said. Her voice was different this time. More careful. Less bright. Okay, I said. Are you angry with us about something? I thought about how to answer that, not because I was deciding whether to be honest, but because I wanted to be precise. Not angry, I said. But I need you to understand something. When I was going through treatment 2 years ago, I needed someone to show up. I called you the night I got my diagnosis and you put me on hold. I texted you the morning of my surgery, and the first response I got was a picture of tile. I spent 6 weeks of radiation going to appointments alone. I had a neighbor I'd known for 8 months sit in a waiting room for me because no one else offered. Silence. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad, I said. I'm telling you because you asked why I can't fly to Portland to pick up my brother after a knee scope. And I think you actually deserve to know the real answer. My mother didn't say anything for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different. Quieter. I didn't know it was that hard, she said. I told you, I said gently. But I think maybe you heard me say the words and you didn't understand what the words meant. Your brother needed so much during the renovation, I know, and I'm not saying that wasn't real. I'm saying that at the same time, I was sick, and no one came. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. Not the performed kind, but the real kind, the kind that comes when something lands. I don't know what to say, she said. You don't have to say anything right now, I said. I just needed you to know. We talked for a few more minutes, careful and slow, and then we said goodbye. Not warmly, but not badly. Something had shifted. My brother's procedure happened without me. His wife ended up leaving work early to pick him up, which it turned out she could do when she needed to. He texted me a few days later, A long message that surprised me. He said my mother had talked to him, that he didn't realize how absent they'd all been, that he didn't know how to fix it, but that he was sorry. I read it twice. I didn't respond right away. I'm still deciding what kind of relationship I want to have with him going forward. My mother has texted me every week since the call. Not long messages, just small ones. Made that soup you used to like. We'll send you the recipe. Thinking about you today. How's the cat? The first few I read and didn't answer. The last two I've responded to briefly. 1 word, 2 words. But I responded. That feels like enough for now. I still have the folder on my phone. The texts, the call logs, the hospital visitor records that show a column labeled Visitors, with the same entry, repeated across weeks of dates, none. I don't open it often, but I don't delete it either. Here's what I know now that I didn't know at 29. The people who are supposed to show up sometimes won't. Not because they're evil, and not because they don't love you at all, but because they've quietly decided, without ever announcing the decision, that you can handle things, that you always manage, that your pain is smaller than their convenience. You are allowed to stop proving them right. You are allowed to stop proving them right. You are allowed to say, I can't deal right now, and mean it in every possible way. You are allowed to have a Tuesday night when you need soup and a blanket and someone to sit with you, and to let the person who shows up for that become your real family, whatever their last name is. I had dinner with John Keel last Thursday. She's moving in the spring, a new job across town, but she swore the Friday walks aren't stopping, which I believe, because she's never once told me something she didn't mean. We stayed at the restaurant until they started stacking chairs around us, just talking, the way you can when you're with someone who actually wants to know your answers. Driving home, the garnet ring caught the light from a street lamp and threw a small red shadow across my steering wheel. I noticed it, that's all. I just noticed it, and I kept driving, and it was enough.